Today, I'm finally going to organize something that's been driving me nuts for a couple years now. And I'm going to be doing it with a Harbor Freight US General toolbox roller cabinet. And one thing about this particular toolbox is, if you don't know, the yellow ones are $100 cheaper. Apparently, nobody likes the color yellow. Me personally, for what I'm doing with it, I didn't care what color it was. I even asked if they had any scratch and dent sales on anything in the back, and they said no. But it is a 44-inch, 13-drawer roller cabinet. And I've got to get it out of the back of the truck here, get it unboxed, and I will explain a little more as what I'm going to be storing in this thing and why I elected to go this route, and I'll show you and explain why. All right, I got it all unpackaged, got the box off of it. Had to lift it up on there, kick the pallet out, unlock the caster wheels, and what I'm doing is, because I don't have anybody at the moment here to help me get this thing out, and being the impatient guy that I am, I want to get started on this project. So I grabbed the corner protectors out of the box that came with the toolbox, put a ratchet strap there, and I put a ratchet strap down to the chain hook points on this. Comes up and around, and that's what's going to hold this corner protector on. I'm going to go ahead and pick the wheels up, slide it out, drop it down on the belly of the thing, and then just take this and try and tip it up out of here. Hopefully everything will stay intact when I do that. I'm using the cardboard that came with the box in there, and get this thing out of here by myself. Not sure how well it's going to work. Not sure if my back's going to hurt in the morning. Blew right out of my shoe. Well, there you go. It's out of the truck. One person, no damage. Everything on it still looks brand new. But again, you can see I used the corner protector straps to hold it on so it wouldn't slide off. Pulled it out, laid it down on the packaging that came with it. So now, get the wheel of this over into the workshop, and I'm gonna show you what I'm putting in it. And what I'm going to be storing in this might surprise you. I generally do not like to buy brand new toolboxes. Anything you guys have seen in the past in here, these were all bought and used, and save some money. These are the good snap-ons. These are what I store my good tools in. But in this particular case, the Harbor Freight US General toolbox was more than adequate for what I want to do. I want to show you real quick. I spent some time over the holiday weekend picking up and organizing my workshop. This does not look organized, but all of this, including this, these are all cut off pieces of steel, were just laying stacked here on my countertop in the shop. I finally got it cleaned up and it looks really nice. Well, I had a bad habit of when I would cut a piece off and it might have been 2 or 3 inches long, and I just have a terrible time of throwing things away like that because I use small pieces all the time for different projects. So I would always end up storing them or keeping them, and I would throw them on here. But I want to show you my other problem I've got. I also would store them down in here. So I've got 3 cupboards, cabinets, whatever you want to call them, worth of small piece steel that I would cut off, brackets, everything like that. Simple little stupid things, like I saved these bicycle posts, but I have actually used bicycle posts for the BMX trick bikes. I've used them in the past, so I don't throw things like that away. Little pieces of angle iron. I use these things all the time for different projects, and they're all small cut-off pieces, anywhere from let's say 16-inch long and different diameters. This is like a 2-inch diameter pipe. This is 1.5 by 1.5 inches, maybe 10 inches long. But the reality of it is I don't throw this stuff away because I use it. And over here I've got some aluminum stuff. All the little things that I like to keep, because those are things that I utilize. And if any of you guys have gone out and bought any steel lately, any of you guys that do fabrication, know how much money it costs to buy a full-length stick of this stuff. Now, I went out and bought a square tube of 1.25 by 1.25, 20 feet long, for the wood splitter project. And that was $100 and some, $110, $120 for that length of steel. And when I'm done using what I needed for the project, I might have 2 feet left over. There is no way in the world, with the price of steel these days, that I'm going to throw any of this stuff away. So I store it, and I don't store it very well. And I knew that there had to be a better way, and I looked, and I can't make a rack. I've got a rack for longer stuff over in my other far garage over there. So anything long, I keep over there. But the shorter cutoff pieces that I utilize and use the most, like these things here, I needed a way to store them, and I'm going to try and find a way to do it with this. Now, keep in mind, I will probably label whether it's flat bar, 1/4 inch, 3/8, whatever, by whatever length or width or height or anything like that to some extent. But now it gives me a little bit of an organized place to put these in. And what I liked about this one is it's 2.5 inches deep. So I can put a 2x2 square tube in here, as long as it isn't longer than the rail, and that'll be the guideline. If longer than the shelf, excuse me. And that will be the guideline, that if it's longer than this, then I need to find a place over there to put it on my racks to hold the steel. So I'm going to go ahead and start organizing this stuff, or at least storing it in here, because in that cabinet over there, I couldn't pull a drawer out and individually see what was in each one. I made some wooden baskets for the shelf over there, but the reality of it is you can't get into the bottom of a box that is stored inside of a cabinet and truly see what you have in there. So I've got individual little boxes that I made down here, and I can't get in there, and I'm literally flipping things over out of the way to see if I can find that little piece that I needed. Generally, you can't, and next thing you know, you're going to cut it off of a long stick that you didn't really want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting a lot of this stuff out of here. There might be more in here than what will fit in that box. And at that point in time, that's when I got to determine, keep it or get rid of it. So the absolute hardest part about doing this is trying to figure out how to organize them. And it's not like nuts and bolts. You store back here that you have dimensions, and you put individual pieces in the drawers that are a standard dimension or a standard number that you would put it to. They're not like putting wrenches or sockets in a toolbox where you have specific metrics that you can put in an organization that all have dimensions, or standard wrenches, sockets, things like that, that you can organize by a dimension or a spot. But one thing that I'm going to do is, I don't have a lot of round stock, so I'm going to try and use maybe 2 or 3 drawers on this side just for round pieces. And the other thing that you run into is, say a piece like this that's a little bit over the width of the drawer. It doesn't fit in there by about 4 inches. So I've got to determine whether I want to store it in here, whether I want to make a shorter shelf over on the steel rack bin, or do I have enough of it in individual or different sizes, lengths that is. Do I want to cut 4 inches off of this just so it would fit in there this way or this way? I would actually have to cut more off of it because it's not as deep as it is wide. So I think I'll make that decision. I've only got 4 pieces in here that are too long to fit in a drawer. So I've got to determine whether cutting 4 inches off of each one, and then would I be able to utilize the 4-inch cutoffs, which absolutely I would. So those are just some things that I look at when I do this. And the other thing, the other key part of this is I've got all this laid out, but I almost need to get all of this laid out so I can see what I've got and make it a little bit easier just for picking and placing back into the toolbox. What I may do is start picking this stuff up and putting it on the top of the shelf up here, just so I can see it real quick visual glance, what it is that I have. And then I've also got this over here that I can do a quick visual glance and see what I've got. Is it going to make that toolbox extremely heavy? Yes, it will. But I'm willing to take that risk. I just pulled out 3 of those wooden trays that I had made in there out of the shelving. And like I said earlier, the hardest part about it is you can't see down in there to see what's in your trays or what's in your storage. So I've got these pulled out, and you can see there's just a little bit of everything. There's pieces that I've saved for something, and I know I've used or cut pieces off of this several times. And this was a 1/4-inch bracket off of a wheel, I guess stabilizer, if you will, off of an old mower deck, and just bunches of different stuff that I keep. These were old brackets off of some old equipment that we had for a door plate stopper. This is a piece off of an old fork truck fork front guard that goes above the forks, and it was junk scrap, so I've cut that up. And the amount of things I've made out of just these little pieces that I've got, whether I need to cut another piece out of it or what I need to do. But it's just a simple way to save some money by finding scrap little pieces of stuff, saving them and using them rather than going out and buying new. But the downside is how do you create storage for these things to where you know what you have and you can at a quick glance grab what you need. That's what I'm hoping I can do here. And started by, this is some of the different plate steels that I have. No, it's not organized in there, but I can pull this drawer out. I can see what's in there if I need to pick a piece up, and I'm not going to stack them 5, 6, 7, 8 deep, because then that just defeats the purpose. So I'm just going to put maybe 1 or 2 pieces on top of each other, and it makes it simple to go in there and see what I got. And this is, oh, that's 1/2 inch there. And yeah, I'm saving it because I might use that for a gusset somewhere. Some more of this, more 1/2 inch stuff. But this is my downfall in life, as I store and I save things like this, knowing that they're valuable. It's easier to cut a small piece out of a little piece of scrap than it is to go over to a long piece, and these aren't even really long. They're only about 3.5 feet long. But rather than going to my steel bin or my scrap or my racking over there and cutting a very small section off of that, I would much rather come in and find a piece here that's closer and cut it up, and then I'll just save the leftover cut off of it again. So I'm going to go ahead and start going through some of this stuff and putting it in a toolbox, seeing what works. Ultimately, this is just going to be a pull-out storage tray for scrap little cut-off pieces. So here's the really good thing. I've got those bottom shelves cleaned out. Now I've got some pieces left over up here that are very odd shaped or something different. There's some old bicycle training wheel brackets, some gym equipment brackets, things like that. Couple old hunting stand armrests that I don't use. Just some different things there. So I've got to make decisions on what I want to do with that stuff. I've got one of my drawers that I had lightweight tubing in, whether they were old lamp rods, with the threaded end on them there. Things like that. This is all real thin wall stuff. So I like to use this in case I ever need to cut a round hole in something like foam or something like that. I've got 3 boxes here. These are all brackets of some sort that were powder coated that I want to keep. These are just an odd bracket that I had. This bolt was welded on and it was part of my mower deck. A couple other specialty old brackets. It's just things like this that I like to keep because at some point they come in handy. And this tray here is stuff I'm going to throw away. So yes, I am throwing something away. And I don't keep everything, but I'm throwing that away. And for the most part, this box is now full. It took everything that was on the table and everything that was under there, and with some kind of organization is now in here. Now granted, the stuff that's in the drawer is not organized, laid out nice and neat. But what it is it's organized in size, shape, flatness, thickness, things like that. This top drawer is all aluminum, copper, or brass. Very little copper and brass, but it's all aluminum. So if I need something that's out of aluminum, this is a drawer I know to go to now. Simple things like these are all small pieces of angle iron. Here's some more different angle iron or a C-shaped type of material you can see there. And those are just all the smaller chunks. And I will go through and label all that. These are all flat, thin, 18 gauge, 16 gauge, different pieces of stuff that I can make little guards or covers or plates for, stuff like that. And here's a lot of this is round, heavier walled stuff, tubing that I can use. These things here, they were old ceiling fan posts. So, you get 2 or 3 different length drops with a ceiling fan. So I keep those because those are about a 1/16 of an inch wall thickness. And they make good for fabricating up stuff. Here's some bigger pipe and tubing, 1/8 inch wall, stuff like that. Some more round tubing. So I've pretty much got everything back in the drawers, a way to store it. There's 1/2 inch and 3/16 and 3/8 thick flat plate. But anyhow, I've now taken the mess that I had under there and on top of that cabinet and organize it to an extent that I can now come and find, or at least make it easier to look for pieces. Anybody that does fabrication knows that they usually have a shelf or a box or a tote or something full of things that just make it so difficult to find anything, and then they go out and cut off chunks of their big pieces when they need something. And I refuse to do that with the way steel costs these days. So let me go ahead and get this thing finished up, get everything over there picked up and put away. All right, I've got all the drawers labeled. Most of you might not understand it, but I completely understand it and know exactly what would be in there. So when you label something like that has real no size or anything like that as far as dimensional size, just put on there when you're going to label something what makes sense to you. And with that being said, man, I couldn't be much happier how this turned out. Like I showed you earlier, I've got just stuff in here that I would keep and just lay on a shelf in the cupboard over there, and it was so hard to go back and re-find it. So you really weren't able to utilize any of the pieces you had or that you were storing because you couldn't get to them. But I wanted to show you this. Now, this counter was an absolute mess a month or two ago, and just day after day I would throw pieces on there that I cut off that I didn't want to throw away. But here's the other thing I want to show you. I got this all cleaned out now, and there is some organization to it. Just some big brackets. Those are some of those bars that are just too odd to store in that cart over there, and can't put them on the steel rack because they've got bends and everything in them. Some longer stainless drill rod that I wanted to keep in here. I've got my machinable plastic stored, and then those 3 trays that I showed you that were up there. This is a million times better. So much easier to find things in there now, and it's not a mess. So I've now got my battery charging area back, layout tables clean, benches and everything over there cleaned up. I've just really enjoyed getting this picked back up, and without that, I don't think I could have done it without just throwing everything away. So I guess if you enjoyed this video and my use of a toolbox for storing my miscellaneous scrap cutoffs, why, leave me a thumbs up. If you guys have any better way of how you do it, and I know wood scrap storage is another big one for me, and maybe someday I'll tackle that. But the reality of it is, I got one mess taken care of. So always nice to get that done. Don't forget, drop me a comment, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again on the next one. Thanks.
So many days is yet to come. Too many times has come to pass. Too many moments put aside.